Hi everyone, today I'm here with a new video, a new tutorial that will allow you to knit such a bag in just one evening, and it's so easy that it's perfect for beginners. The materials needed are one skein of 5mm cord with a core, which comes in a 100-meter skein. I've chosen the color ivory. So let's start knitting. You'll need a 12mm crochet hook and knitting needles for this. At the beginning of the knitting, I left about a meter of yarn for sewing pieces later. To ensure an even edge at the beginning and end of the work, I used the crochet hook to cast on 25 stitches. First, I create the initial chain stitch with the crochet hook. Then I take the knitting needle and insert it under the working yarn. Next, I use the crochet hook to loop the working yarn over the knitting needle from the top. This creates the first stitch on the knitting needle. The cast-on edge will have these little twists. Make sure to make the initial chain stitch a bit tighter than shown in the video. I've cast on the stitches again to prevent the twists from being too loose in the cast on row. Let's continue casting on stitches. The working yarn goes under the knitting needle again. If I were to create the chain stitch with the crochet hook right away, the twists at the bottom would look as though the stitch is crossed. So before making the next chain stitch, I'll pull the hook out of the stitch and change the direction of the loop on the hook like this. This way I'll cast on 24 stitches. "24 stitches are cast on. Now I'll transfer the loop that's left on the crochet hook onto the knitting needle. To do this, I'll pull out the crochet hook, lay the working yarn over the knitting needle, change the direction of the loop, and then simply slide this loop onto the knitting needle. Done. Now let's begin knitting. I have a total of 25 stitches with 2 edge stitches. So in the first row, I'll slip the first edge stitch like this. In the following rows, I'll slip the first edge stitch as usual by inserting the knitting needle into the stitch from the left. I have slipped the edge stitch. Now we knit the knit stitches until the end of the row, and for the last edge stitch, I'll purl it. We'll be using garter stitch. In garter stitch, we knit only the knit stitches in every row when we knit with back and forth knitting. All rows are worked in this manner. Slip the first edge stitch, knit the remaining stitches, and purl the last edge stitch. Alright, I've knitted 5 rows, which measures 4 centimeters. It seems to me that 5 rows might be a bit much. I would have knitted 1 row less. Please knit 4 rows. Next, in the following 2 rows, I'll form the handle. To do this, I'll slip the first edge stitch, then knit 6 stitches. Then I'll close 11 stitches. To do this, I'll knit the first stitch, then knit the second stitch and pass the first stitch over the second stitch. Then, starting again, I'll knit a stitch, then lift the previous stitch over the newly knitted stitch. I'll continue closing the next stitches in this way until 7 stitches remain. Look, there are 7 stitches left on the needle. But since I have one stitch already on the needle, I need to close this stitch as well. I should have 7 stitches on the needle, just like at the beginning of the row. If I don't close this stitch, I would end up with 8 stitches on this side. The row is completed. Moving on to the next row, and in this row I am going to reintroduce the 11 stitches that were closed in the previous row. Let's begin. I'll slip the edge stitch, then knit 6 stitches. Next, I'll pick up the 11 stitches using a crochet hook. To do this, I'll bring the working yarn behind the knitting needle, then insert the crochet hook into the horizontal loop and catch the working yarn. Then I'll proceed to pick up the stitches as I showed before, changing the direction of the loop. This way I'll pick up 10 stitches and I'll slide the last loop on the crochet hook onto the knitting needle, so that the working yarn is positioned behind the needle. Then I'll continue knitting the row to the end. Now I have 25 stitches back on the needles. Next, continue knitting in garter stitch with knit stitches in every row. Alright, I've knitted 31 centimeters and then formed the second handle. After that, I've brought back the closed stitches and knitted 5 more rows just like we did at the beginning, in order to make the start and end of the knitting symmetrical. Once I've completed these 5 rows, I'll close all the stitches and finish the knitting. Knitting is completed and now we can steam the fabric. The dimensions of the piece are 41 centimeters in length and 32 centimeters in width. I initially left a tail for steaming at the beginning of the knitting, but since the end of the knitting ended up on the same side as the tail, I'll cut off the tail from the beginning and neatly secure and fasten the end of the yarn. So I'm holding the fabric in half with the wrong side facing out. We'll be stitching from the wrong side and then turn it right side out. For sewing, I am using a needle with a large eye. I'll be sewing the piece together by connecting the adjacent sides of loops from both sides. My needle is a bit old and not very smooth, so it occasionally catches on the cord. I've sewn one side together, now I can secure the yarn. I finished the second side, hidden all the tails, and I always secure them with matching thread to prevent them from coming loose during use. Now let's turn it right side out. Here's the result. The dimensions are approximately 31 centimeters in width and around 20 centimeters in height for the back. I had a small length of cord left from the skein and I decided to decorate the back. I am cutting pieces around 30-32 centimeters long. I'll seal the ends of all the pieces with a lighter. For the longer pieces, I didn't have enough cord. I'll be making a fringe on both sides of the back side. I visually pick out 2 rows where I'll attach the pieces, and I'm attaching them every other row. I'd like to mention that my 100 meter skein of cord ran out exactly. If you want to use a single skein like I did, cast on 23 stitches instead of 25. Cord lengths can vary, and there is a chance you might need around 5-10 meters of extra cord. At the end, I'll steam the bag once more. I hope you enjoyed this simple bag project. Wishing you a pleasant time watching and knitting. Until next time!